These things happen with kids, Mr. Mason.
I'm a negligence attorney, and you just enabled assault.
Daddy, look at the shapes in the clouds. Emma was swinging in our backyard, her 8-year-old voice full of wonder. Then came the scream, sharp, terrified, primal. I ran outside to find her clutching her right eye, tears streaming down her face. "It hurts, Daddy, it burns." I looked up and saw him. Kyle Brennan, 14 years old, standing in his second-floor window with a green laser pointer still aimed at my daughter. He was laughing. The ER was a blur of fluorescent lights and Emma's sobs. The ophthalmologist's words hit like bullets. "Permanent retinal damage. Class 3B laser. She's lost vision in that eye." I held my daughter while she cried, her right eye covered in gauze, her childhood stolen by a teenager with a weapon and no conscience. That's when Patricia Brennan walked into the waiting room, not to apologize, not to check on Emma. She handed me a violation notice. "Mr. Mason, your children's play set violates Section 12.4 of our architectural guidelines. Unapproved exterior structures. That's a $1,000 fine." If you're a parent watching this, you'll understand what came next. "Your son just blinded my daughter," I said, my voice barely controlled. "And you're fining me for a swing set?" "Boys will be boys," Patricia said, smoothing her power suit. "Kyle was working on a science project. These things happen. But HOA violations?" She tapped the clipboard. "Those are serious. I'm a personal injury attorney, 15 years specializing in child negligence cases, premises liability, cases exactly like this. And I was staring at a woman who just weaponized bureaucracy to protect her son from consequences. If you've ever felt that protective rage when someone hurts your child, stay with me and hit subscribe now. I'll be filing a police report," I said carefully, "and pursuing civil action for the permanent injury your son caused my daughter." The board chair's smile never wavered. "I'd reconsider that, Mr. Mason. False accusations against board members' families can result in additional violations. And legal fees." She glanced at Emma, still sobbing in the hospital bed visible through the doorway. "You have 10 days to remove that swing set, and I'll expect payment of the fine within 30. She left before I could respond, her heels clicking against the hospital tile like a countdown. 3 hours later, the doctor released Emma with prescriptions, an eye patch, and instructions for a specialist. "The damage is permanent," he said quietly. "She'll need to learn to navigate the world with compromised depth perception. No contact sports, significant accommodations." Emma had been training for her soccer team. She'd talked about it for months. I drove home in silence, Emma asleep in the back seat, exhausted from crying. When we pulled into our driveway, I saw it, the swing set I'd built with her 3 years ago. She used to spend hours there, swinging high enough to feel like she was flying, telling me about her dreams, becoming a soccer player, maybe a pilot someday. Now it sat empty, a monument to what Kyle Brennan had taken from her. I carried Emma inside and tucked her into bed, her gauze-covered eye a reminder that some injuries never heal. Then I stood at her bedroom window, looking out at that swing set, and made a decision. Patricia Brennan thought her clipboard and her HOA bylaws made her untouchable. She thought she could shield her son from justice by burying us in violations and intimidation. She didn't know I'd spent 15 years learning exactly how to dismantle people who abuse power to harm children. And I was about to teach her that some battles aren't fought in HOA meetings. They're fought in the court of public opinion, where exposure is the ultimate weapon. The next morning, I filed a police report. Officer Daniels took my statement, photographed Emma's injury, documented the laser pointer incident. "We'll follow up with the Brennan family," he promised. "This is assault with a deadly weapon if the injury is permanent." 2 days later, I got a call from the police chief himself. "Mr. Mason, we've reviewed your complaint. Mrs. Brennan has provided a statement that the incident occurred in your private backyard, not on HOA common property. Without witnesses, and given the conflicting accounts, we're closing the case." Conflicting accounts. Her son was in his window with a laser. Kyle claims he was conducting a science experiment inside his own home. No criminal intent. These things happen with kids. The chief's tone was final. "I'd suggest handling this through civil court if you're still concerned." Patricia had gotten to him first. Of course she had. That same afternoon, another violation notice appeared on my door. Mailbox paint. Wrong shade of black. Grass height, 0.3 inches over the limit. Holiday wreath. Displayed 4 days past the community deadline. 3 violations. 3 days. The message was clear. I took Emma to the community pool that weekend, trying to give her some normalcy despite the eye patch and her constant questions about whether she'd ever see normally again. Other parents were there, families we'd known for years. But something was different. The conversations were hushed, nervous. Sarah Martinez approached me while Emma played in the shallow end, her depth perception struggles making her cautious of the water. "Derek, I'm so sorry about what happened," Sarah whispered, glancing around like she was being watched. "But I need to tell you something. You're not the first." "What do you mean?" She pulled out her phone, showed me a photo of her cat with a pellet wound. "Kyle shot Whiskers with a BB gun last summer, right through our fence line. The vet bill was $600. Her voice dropped even lower. "Patricia paid it on the condition we didn't report it. Said boys need to learn through mistakes, not police records." My blood went cold. "How many other incidents?" "Too many." Another parent, Tom Chen, joined us, his expression grim. "My son reported Kyle throwing lit fireworks at kids near the playground, burned a 7-year-old's arm. When I brought it to the board, the HOA president called it mutual roughhousing and threatened me with a harassment complaint." "The woman in the power suit has a system," Sarah said bitterly. "Anyone who complains gets buried in violations, landscaping, paint colors, parking. She finds something. We're all terrified to speak up because we can't afford the fines. Or the special assessments," Tom added. "She's been pushing for a $5,000 emergency fund for legal defense of board members. We all know what that means. Money to fight families like yours if you sue." I looked around the pool. 8 families with young children, all watching Kyle's mother patrol the area with her clipboard, all keeping their kids away from the deep end where Kyle was showing off for his friends. Fear was thick in the air. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. 2 years that I know of," Tom said. "Maybe longer. Kyle's escalating. BB guns, fireworks, now lasers. She covers for him every time, and we're too scared to do anything." The board chair walked past our group, her smile cold and knowing. She'd seen us talking. Tomorrow, there would probably be more violations for all of us. But as I watched Emma struggle to climb out of the pool, misjudging the distance because she couldn't see depth anymore, something hardened inside me. These parents were trapped by fear. Their children were in danger, and Patricia Brennan had built a system where speaking up meant financial punishment. She'd made one critical mistake, though. She'd targeted the daughter of someone who knew exactly how to expose systematic abuse. Marcus Chen was waiting by my mailbox when we got home from the pool. He stood there awkwardly, hands fidgeting with a rolled-up newspaper, his eyes darting toward Patricia's house 3 doors down like he expected surveillance. "Mr. Mason," he said quietly, "do you have a moment?" I recognized him. HOA vice president, always sitting beside the board chair at community meetings, nodding along with her decisions. Emma went inside, still frustrated from struggling at the pool, and I stayed on the driveway, arms crossed. "If you're here to deliver another violation, I'm not." Marcus's voice cracked slightly. He was in his early 50s, graying hair, the careful posture of someone who'd spent decades managing classrooms. "I was a school principal for 30 years, retired 3 years ago." He paused, swallowing hard. "I know what patterns of escalating behavior look like in children, and I know what happens when adults enable it instead of intervening." Something in his tone made me wait. "I've been keeping notes," he continued, his hands trembling now. "Personal notes. Not official HOA records, just observations that concerned me as an educator." He glanced back at Patricia's house again. BB gun incidents, fireworks, harassment at the playground. Every time someone complained, she buried them in violations or threatened lawsuits. "I watched it happen, and His voice broke completely. "I voted with her every time. I'm on the compliance committee. I signed off on your violations. Then why are you here? Are you—" Marcus's eyes were red-rimmed, carrying weight I recognized, guilt that had been festering. "Because I have 3 daughters, all grown now, but when they were young, if someone had hurt them and I'd stayed silent," he shook his head. My granddaughter lives with me part-time. She's 6. Last month, Kyle pointed that same laser at her face while she was playing in my front yard. The air went still between us. I didn't report it, Marcus whispered, shame thick in his voice. Patricia threatened to sue me personally if I undermined board decisions or spread false accusations about her son. I was terrified, so I stayed quiet. He looked at Emma's window, where she was visible through the curtains, adjusting her eye patch. But seeing your daughter, what he did to her, I can't carry this anymore. What exactly are you telling me? I've documented everything for 2 years. Dates, times, complaints that were filed and then buried. Parents who were retaliated against. Kyle's pattern of behavior. His hands were shaking harder now. I have recordings of board meetings where she explicitly said, "We protect our own, and Kyle is ours to protect." I have notes on incidents the police chief helped cover up. I have a timeline showing escalation from property damage to assault. He pulled a business card from his pocket, his own, with a handwritten note on the back. If you pursue this legally, if you take her on, there might be documentation that could come to light through proper discovery channels. His voice steadied slightly. I can't hand it to you directly. She'd destroy me, but if a court ordered it, if official legal proceedings required my testimony. Marcus met my eyes directly for the first time. I failed those children by staying silent. I failed my professional responsibility as someone who spent 3 decades protecting kids. A tear rolled down his cheek. I can't undo what happened to Emma, but I can make sure the truth comes out when it matters. He walked away before I could respond, his shoulders hunched with the weight of complicity and the first steps toward redemption. I stood there holding his card, understanding what he'd just given me. Not evidence, not yet, but something more valuable, confirmation that the evidence existed, documented by someone on the inside. The woman in the power suit had built her protective wall around Kyle using fear and retaliation. She just didn't know one of her own board members had been keeping receipts the entire time. The emergency HOA meeting notice arrived 3 days later. Mandatory attendance, special agenda item, Community Legal Defense Fund. I wasn't invited, board members only, but Sarah Martinez texted me photos of the presentation slides Patricia had prepared. My stomach turned as I read them. Proposal, $5,000 special assessment per household to establish legal defense fund protecting board members and their families from frivolous harassment claims and false accusations. The target was obvious. Me. Emma was at her first therapy appointment that evening, learning coping strategies for her vision loss, when I got the call from Tom Chen. It passed. 8 votes in favor, 3 against. Every homeowner in Meadowbrook Estates just got hit with a $5,000 bill to fund Patricia's war chest against you. She's weaponizing the entire community's money, I said, watching Emma through the observation window as she struggled with depth perception exercises, reaching for objects that weren't where her brain told her they should be. It gets worse, Tom continued. She made a speech about protecting our children from malicious attacks and ensuring board members can defend their families without financial burden. She painted you as the aggressor. Half the room believed her. That night, another violation notice appeared. This one made my hands shake with rage. Unapproved signage visible from street. Living room window displays commercial materials in violation of Section 8.2. I looked through my front window. Emma's new large print books were stacked on the coffee table, adaptive learning materials the vision specialist had prescribed. Patricia was citing my daughter's disability accommodations as violations. The cruelty wasn't accidental. It was surgical. The next morning, I was reviewing case files at my law office when my paralegal knocked. Derek, there's a situation. Parents are calling. 2 families had reported seeing Kyle with the laser again yesterday afternoon, pointing it at kids near the playground. Both families had immediately received violation notices, one for excessive garden decoration, another for non-conforming mailbox placement. The pattern was undeniable. Report Kyle, get punished. But then came the detail that made everything click. One of the mothers, Jessica Park, had taken video. 30 seconds of Kyle systematically targeting younger children with the green laser beam, laughing as they scattered and cried. The timestamp was clear. 4:47 p.m. Community playground. Multiple witnesses. She sent this to Patricia first, my paralegal said, asked her to intervene as HOA president. 2 hours later, Jessica got 5 separate violation notices and a letter threatening legal action for harassment of a minor. I watched the video 3 times. Kyle's face was clearly visible. The laser's path was documented, children crying, parents rushing to shield their kids, and Kyle just laughing. The HOA president had received evidence of her son actively endangering children and responded by attacking the witness. That evening, I started pulling Patricia's background, routine due diligence for the civil case I was building. Her LinkedIn profile showed current employment. Senior HR consultant, Meridian Corporate Solutions. I knew Meridian. They handled ethical compliance and background investigations for Fortune 500 companies. Their entire business model was built on trustworthiness and moral authority. What would happen if Meridian discovered their senior consultant was covering up child endangerment, using her position of authority to shield a teenager with a pattern of assaulting younger children? I made a list. Jessica's video, Marcus's promised documentation, the timeline of retaliation, the special assessment weaponized against victims' families, medical records of Emma's permanent injury. Patricia thought she was building a legal defense fund to crush me in court. She didn't understand that I wasn't planning to fight her in court. I was planning to expose her everywhere else. Her employer, her insurance carrier, her reputation, the media. She'd made this about protecting her son from consequences. I was about to show her what consequences really looked like. I spent the next 2 days doing what I do best, investigating. Not just Patricia, but the entire HOA structure. Follow the money, find the corruption. It's a lesson I'd learned in 15 years of negligence cases. The HOA's financial records were public, available to any homeowner who requested them. I started with insurance policies, vendor contracts, anything that showed where money flowed. That's when I found it. Every homeowner in Meadowbrook Estates had received a letter 2 years ago. Mandatory insurance compliance notification. All residents must maintain homeowners insurance through HOA-approved carriers to ensure adequate community protection. The letter listed 3 preferred providers, with one highlighted Brennan and Associates Insurance Agency. I pulled up the business registration. Owner, Melissa Brennan, Patricia's sister. My pulse quickened as I cross-referenced addresses. I called every homeowner I knew, asking a simple question. Who's your insurance carrier? By evening, the picture was clear. 178 of 215 homes used Brennan and Associates. The preferred provider wasn't a suggestion. It was a funnel. I calculated commission rates for homeowner policies in our area. Conservative estimate. Each policy generated $400, $600 annually in agent commissions. Multiply that by 178 homes. Patricia was pocketing between $71,000 and $107,000 every year by steering community insurance through her sister's agency. A massive conflict of interest, potentially insurance fraud. I dug deeper into Patricia's LinkedIn profile, examining her current role at Meridian Corporate Solutions. Her bio proudly listed her responsibilities: ethical compliance consulting, corporate governance advisory, background investigations for executive placement. The irony was staggering. She advised companies on ethics while running an insurance kickback scheme and covering up her son's pattern of assault. But there was more. Meridian's client list included 3 companies I recognized, all requiring stringent background checks and ethical clearances for consultants. If Patricia's enabling of child endangerment became public, if her insurance fraud was exposed, she wouldn't just lose credibility, she'd lose everything. I pulled Kyle's school records next. Public information through a FOIA request I'd filed days ago. 2 suspensions, both for weapons violations. One for bringing a BB gun to school, another for a laser pointer incident in the cafeteria that had injured another student's eye. The school district had recommended counseling and behavioral intervention. Patricia had refused, claiming the school was targeting her son. She'd used her HOA connections, 2 school board members lived in Meadowbrook, to suppress the records and avoid any permanent notation on Kyle's transcript. Her son had a documented pattern of escalating dangerous behavior. She'd systematically covered it up, using her authority in multiple systems to ensure he faced 0 consequences. My phone buzzed. Sarah Martinez. Derek, you need to see this. Patricia just sent another community-wide email. I opened it. The subject line: protecting our community from malicious litigation. The email detailed my harassment campaign against innocent families, warned residents about my frivolous legal threats, and announced that the Special Assessment Fund would be used to defend community values against opportunistic attorneys seeking financial gain from childhood accidents. She'd just defamed me in writing to 215 households, painting my daughter's permanent injury as an accident and me as a predatory lawyer. That was her second critical mistake. The first was targeting Emma. The second was putting her lies in writing. I opened a new document on my computer and started outlining, not a lawsuit, something bigger. A comprehensive exposure package, Emma's medical records, Kyle's pattern, the insurance scheme, Patricia's professional conflicts, the systematic retaliation against families, Marcus's promised testimony. I wasn't building a court case. I was building a story, and I knew exactly who would want to tell it. It was time to call a journalist. The process server found me in my driveway the next morning. "Derek Mason, you've been served." Patricia had filed for a restraining order against me. The petition claimed I'd been stalking her and Kyle, making threatening statements at community gatherings, and creating a hostile environment that endangers her son's safety and mental well-being. Every allegation was a fabrication. But the hearing was scheduled for 5 days from now. If granted, I'd be barred from HOA common areas, couldn't attend board meetings, couldn't use the playground, pool, or community spaces with Emma, and my legal credibility, the foundation of everything I was building, would be shattered. The woman in the power suit was trying to silence me with the legal system itself. That afternoon, Emma had her follow-up appointment with Dr. Reyes, the vision therapist. I sat in the observation room, watching through one-way glass as my daughter struggled with depth perception exercises. "Can you reach for the red ball, Emma?" Dr. Reyes asked gently. Emma reached, her hand grasping at empty air 6 inches from where the ball actually sat. Tears of frustration rolled down her cheeks. "I can't tell where it is. Everything looks flat." "That's okay. We'll keep practicing. Your brain is learning to adapt." "Will I ever play soccer again?" Emma's voice was so small, so broken. Dr. Reyes glanced at me through the glass, her expression pained. "Soccer might be difficult, sweetie. Depth perception is crucial for tracking moving balls. But we'll find other activities you'll love." I watched my daughter's face crumble as another piece of her future died. Kyle had taken her eye. Now reality was taking her dreams. Dr. Reyes joined me after the session, her report folder thick with observations. "The psychological impact is significant, Mr. Mason. Emma exhibits anxiety around teenage boys, flinches at sudden movements, and shows signs of social withdrawal. The community ostracization she's experiencing, being blamed for the incident, watching her father receive violations, it's compounding her trauma. Can you document that?" "I already have. This report details both the physical limitations from her injury and the ongoing psychological harm from the HOA's response." She handed me the folder. "If you need this for legal proceedings, it's comprehensive." I drove home in silence, Emma asleep in the back seat, emotionally exhausted. When we pulled into our driveway, I looked at that swing set again, untouched, unused, a monument to what had been stolen. Emma used to talk about being a pilot someday, about playing college soccer, about all the adventures she'd have. Now she couldn't judge the distance to a ball 3 feet away. That night, after putting Emma to bed, I made my decision. The restraining order hearing was in 5 days. Patricia thought she was cornering me, forcing me into defensive mode. She was wrong. I wasn't going to fight this in a courtroom where judges might be swayed by her carefully constructed lies. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative through HOA emails and legal intimidation. I was going to take this public, expose everything: the insurance fraud, Kyle's pattern, the systematic cover-up, the retaliation against families. I'd show the world exactly who Patricia Brennan was, not through legal briefs, but through investigative journalism and irrefutable evidence. I opened my laptop and started drafting an email to Vanessa Torres, the investigative reporter at Channel 7 I'd researched earlier. Her specialty was exposing corruption and abuse of power. She'd broken stories on predatory HOAs before. I attached Emma's medical records, Dr. Reyes's psychological assessment, the insurance scheme documentation, Kyle's school records, and Jessica's video of the playground incident. The subject line: HOA president covers up son's pattern of assault. One child permanently blinded. If Patricia wanted war, She was about to learn that some battles aren't won with clipboards and restraining orders. They're won with truth, and I had more than enough to destroy her. My finger hovered over send, then I clicked it. Marcus Chen appeared at my door at 10 o'clock that night, carrying a worn leather notebook and a USB drive clutched in trembling hands. His eyes were red-rimmed, his usually neat appearance disheveled. "I can't do this anymore," he said without preamble. "I can't watch her destroy more families while I sit in board meetings and nod along." I stepped aside, letting him into my living room. He set the notebook and USB drive on my coffee table like they were burning his hands. 2 years, Marcus said, his voice cracking. "I've been documenting everything for 2 years, every incident involving Kyle, every complaint that Patricia buried, every family she retaliated against." His hands shook as he opened the notebook, revealing pages of meticulous handwriting, dates, times, names, detailed descriptions. May 2023. Kyle shot the Martinez family's cat with a BB gun. Vet confirmed pellet wound. Patricia paid the bill on condition they sign an NDA and didn't report to animal control. August 2023. Kyle threw lit fireworks at children near the playground. 7-year-old Michael Torres suffered second-degree burns on his arm. The HOA president called it mutual roughhousing and threatened the Torres family with legal action if they filed a police report. December 2023, Kyle harassed elderly Mrs. Patterson's granddaughter with a laser pointer. When Mrs. Patterson complained, she received 9 violation notices in 2 weeks and was threatened with foreclosure. Marcus's voice broke completely. "I voted to approve every single retaliatory violation. I sat in closed session meetings and listened to her say, 'We protect our own, and Kyle is ours to protect. I have recordings.'" He tapped the USB drive. "Everything. Board meetings where she explicitly discussed using HOA authority to silence complainants." Tears streamed down his face now. "My granddaughter lives with me part-time. She's 6 years old. Last month, Kyle pointed that laser at her face while she was playing in my front yard. She screamed, ran inside, had nightmares for a week." His whole body shook. "I didn't report it. I was terrified Patricia would sue me, destroy me financially, turn the board against me." "Why now?" I asked quietly. "Because I was a school principal for 30 years. Marcus looked at me with devastated eyes. "I spent my entire career protecting children, identifying troubled kids who needed intervention, stopping bullies before they escalated. And when I retired and joined this board, I watched a child exhibit every warning sign of dangerous antisocial behavior, and I did nothing." He pulled more documents from the notebook, printed emails, text message screenshots, financial records. "She's been funneling insurance business through her sister's agency. I have proof she pressured homeowners to switch carriers by threatening violation enforcement. I have her own emails discussing how the special assessment would financially exhaust any legal challenges." Marcus's voice steadied slightly, finding strength in confession. "I have a timeline showing Kyle's escalation from property damage to animal cruelty to assault. I have witness statements from families too afraid to come forward publicly." He looked up at Emma's bedroom, where a nightlight glowed. "That little girl lost her eye because I was too cowardly to stop it, because I chose my own comfort over children's safety." His voice broke again. "I can't give this to you directly. Patricia would claim witness tampering. But if this information were to come to light through proper legal channels, through media investigation, through official inquiry..." Marcus stood, leaving the notebook and USB drive on my table. "I was complicit. I enabled this. But I can't carry it anymore." He met my eyes. "Do what you need to do. Expose everything. And when the time comes, when someone official asks me to testify, I'll tell the truth." He walked to the door, then paused. "I'm sorry I didn't protect your daughter. I'm sorry I didn't protect any of them." The door closed behind him, and I was left staring at 2 years of documented evidence that would destroy the board chair's entire defense. My home office transformed into a war room. 3 monitors displayed different aspects of the investigation, documents organized in labeled folders across my desk, Marcus's evidence forming the foundation of something Patricia Brennan would never see coming. I spent 18 hours straight building a comprehensive media package. Not a legal brief. Those come later. This was something more powerful, a story so well documented, so irrefutable, that public opinion would do what courts move too slowly to accomplish. Emma's medical records formed the emotional core. Ophthalmologists report permanent macular damage consistent with Class 3B laser exposure. Patient will experience lifelong visual impairment, including loss of depth perception, reduced visual acuity, and potential for further deterioration. Attached photos showed the progression of her injury, the burned retina, the damaged tissue. Dr. Reyes's psychological assessment was devastating. 8-year-old patient exhibits symptoms of trauma including anxiety, social withdrawal, and depression directly attributable to both the assault and subsequent community ostracization. Patient reports being blamed by neighbors, watching father receive punishment for reporting the incident, and experiencing profound loss of identity as former activities become impossible. I added Jessica Park's video. 30 seconds of Kyle systematically targeting children with the laser at the playground, their screams audible, his laughter clear, timestamp and metadata intact, unedited, undeniable. Marcus's documentation provided the pattern. 2 years of incidents, each one escalating. BB gun, fireworks, harassment, assault. And beside each incident, documentation of Patricia's response. Payments to silence families, threats of legal action, retaliatory violations, systematic suppression. The insurance scheme required financial analysis. I created spreadsheets showing the flow of money. 178 homeowners funneled to Brennan and Associates, estimated annual commissions between $71,000 and $107,000. Emails from the HOA president recommending her sister's agency with veiled threats about insurance compliance violations. Kyle's school records, obtained through FOIA, showed the district's attempts at intervention. 2 suspensions, recommendations for behavioral assessment, counseling requirements, all refused by Patricia, who'd used her HOA connections with school board members to suppress permanent records. I pulled Patricia's professional profile. Meridian Corporate Solutions website proudly featured her bio, senior ethical compliance consultant specializing in corporate governance and background investigations. Her LinkedIn listed clients requiring stringent ethical standards. The irony was weapons grade. She advised Fortune 500 companies on ethics while covering up child endangerment and running insurance fraud. I compiled the retaliation timeline. 15 families who'd complained about Kyle, each one receiving immediate violation notices, garden decorations, mailbox colors, grass height. The pattern was surgical, undeniable. Then I added Patricia's own words, her community-wide email calling Emma's injury a childhood accident, and me an opportunistic attorney seeking financial gain from frivolous claims. Her defamation in writing to 215 households. The evidence package was 147 pages. Medical documentation, financial records, video evidence, witness statements, timeline of escalation, professional conflicts of interest, systematic retaliation. I drafted the email to Vanessa Torres carefully. No emotional appeals, no hyperbole, just facts. Ms. Torres, I'm providing documentation of an HOA president who has used her authority to cover up her son's pattern of assaulting children, including an incident that permanently blinded my 8-year-old daughter. Attached, you'll find medical records, video evidence, financial documentation of insurance fraud, and testimony from families terrorized into silence. This isn't one incident. It's a system designed to protect a dangerous teenager while punishing his victims. I attached everything. Medical files, Marcus's notebook scanned in full, Jessica's video, financial spreadsheets, school records, Patricia's defamatory email. My finger hovered over send. Once I did this, there was no going back. The woman in the power suit would know I'd escalated beyond HOA meetings and restraining orders. But I thought about Emma struggling to reach for a ball 3 feet away, about the swing set sitting empty, about 6 other families too terrified to protect their children. I clicked send. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Vanessa Torres. Mr. Mason, I just opened your email. When can we meet? Vanessa Torres sat across from me in a coffee shop downtown, her laptop open, her expression growing darker with each document she reviewed. She was in her late 30s, sharp-eyed, with the intensity of someone who'd built a career exposing corruption. This is extensive, she said, scrolling through Marcus's timeline. You've essentially done half my investigation already. I'm an attorney. Documentation is what I do. She looked up from the screen. I've covered HOA abuse stories before, but this, a pattern of child endangerment, systematic cover-up, insurance fraud, Retaliation against families. This is bigger than anything I've seen. She clicked on Jessica's video, watched Kyle laugh as children scattered. And you have video evidence. With timestamps and metadata intact. Jessica Park filmed it 3 days ago. She sent it to Patricia first, asking for intervention. 2 hours later, Jessica received 5 violation notices and a threat of legal action for harassment of a minor. Vanessa's jaw tightened. Would Jessica talk on camera? She's terrified. But if other families speak first, if she sees she's not alone. I pulled out my list. 6 families have agreed to share their stories if you protect their identities initially. Once the story breaks, they'll go public. What about the vice president, Marcus Chen? Vanessa tapped the USB drive I'd given her. These recordings are explosive. We protect our own. And Kyle is ours to protect. That's admission of deliberate cover-up. He'll testify when the time comes, but he needs to see the investigation underway first. He's risking everything. Vanessa spent the next 2 hours interviewing me, asking detailed questions, taking notes. She wanted to meet Emma, age-appropriate interview, nothing traumatic. And I agreed. The story needed a face, and Emma deserved to be heard. That evening, Vanessa's news crew came to our house. They filmed the swing set, empty and haunting in the golden hour light. They interviewed Emma gently, letting her talk about soccer, about swinging high enough to touch clouds, about how everything looks flat now. Do you miss playing? Vanessa asked softly. Every day, Emma said, her eye patch stark against her small face. But I can't tell where the ball is anymore. I tried at recess, and I fell. The other kids laughed. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They say it's my fault Daddy got in trouble with the HOA. Vanessa's cameraman kept filming, and I watched my daughter's pain become evidence. Over the next 5 days, Vanessa worked fast. She interviewed the Martinez family about their cat being shot, the Torres family about their son's burn from Kyle's fireworks, Mrs. Patterson about the laser harassment of her granddaughter, each family nervous, looking over their shoulders, but finally speaking. She obtained Kyle's school records through her own FOIA request, interviewed school administrators off the record. They wanted to intervene, she told me after. The district psychologist recommended intensive behavioral therapy. Patricia refused and used her HOA connections with school board members to suppress everything. Vanessa tracked down the retired police chief who'd closed my initial report. He was uncomfortable on camera, clearly hiding something, his deflections obvious. Meanwhile, I executed the second phase. I printed comprehensive evidence summaries, timeline, financial documentation, retaliation patterns, and mailed them via certified letter to all 215 Meadowbrook homeowners. Not through HOA channels Patricia controlled, but directly to each residence. The document was titled, Why Your Children Aren't Safe, a Pattern of Enabling, Retaliation, and Corruption. Within 24 hours, my phone exploded with calls. Neighbors I'd never spoken to, sharing stories they'd been too afraid to tell. 3 board members quietly resigned, not wanting their names associated with what was coming. Patricia called an emergency meeting, but only 12 homeowners attended. Everyone else was forming private groups, sharing violation stories, realizing they weren't alone. The HOA president's control was crumbling before the story even aired. And Vanessa Torres told me her piece would run in 4 days. A 3-part investigative series titled, When HOAs Become Weapons, How One Mother Protected Her Son from Justice. Patricia Brennan had no idea what was about to hit her. The first segment aired on Channel 7 at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday evening. Emma and I watched together from our living room couch, her small hand gripping mine. Vanessa's opening was devastating. Tonight, we begin a 3-part investigation into how one HOA president used her authority to cover up her son's pattern of assaulting children, a pattern that culminated in the permanent blinding of an 8-year-old girl. The screen filled with Emma's face, her eye patch visible, her voice small but clear. I used to want to be a pilot, but you need both eyes to fly planes. The piece was surgical. Medical records displayed on screen showing the laser damage. Dr. Reyes explaining permanent vision loss. Then the timeline. BB gun, fireworks, harassment, assault. Each incident documented with dates and witness testimony. Jessica Park's video played in full. 30 seconds of Kyle targeting children, their screams, his laughter. Parents watching gasped audibly during their own interviews. We reported it, Sarah Martinez said on camera, tears streaming. And within hours, we were buried in violation notices. Everyone in this community knows, if you complain about Kyle Brennan, Patricia Brennan destroys you. The insurance fraud segment was equally damning. Financial records showing 178 homeowners funneled to Brennan and Associates. Emails from the board chair recommending her sister's agency. Estimated commissions displayed $71,107,000 annually. Then came Patricia's professional profile. Meridian Corporate Solutions, Senior Ethical Compliance Consultant. The irony was devastating. She advises Fortune 500 companies on ethics, Vanessa said into the camera, while covering up child endangerment and profiting from insurance fraud. Marcus appeared in shadow, voice disguised. I sat in meetings where she explicitly said, "We protect our own, and Kyle is ours to protect." She used HOA authority as a weapon against families seeking accountability for their children's safety. The retired police chief's uncomfortable interview made his complicity obvious. The school records showed attempted intervention systematically blocked. My phone started ringing before the segment even ended. Other news outlets requesting interviews, the state attorney general's office leaving a message, 3 law firms offering to join the civil case pro bono. Social media exploded. The Meadowbrook accountability accounts I'd created went viral. Thousands of shares, comments from people sharing their own HOA nightmare stories. By morning, the story had gone regional. By afternoon, national outlets were picking it up. HOA President Shields' son who blinded child trended on multiple platforms. Then came the professional consequences. At 10:47 a.m., Patricia's employer released a statement. Meridian Corporate Solutions has terminated its relationship with Patricia Brennan effective immediately. These allegations are fundamentally incompatible with our company's values and ethical standards. Her career, built on advising companies about ethics, destroyed in one sentence. At 2:15 p.m., the HOA's insurance carrier sent an emergency letter to all board members. I obtained a copy through a resigned board member. Given the documented pattern of negligence and deliberate failure to address known dangers, we are suspending coverage pending investigation. If Patricia Brennan is not removed from the board within 72 hours, we will cancel your policy entirely, leaving 215 homes uninsured. The State Insurance Regulatory Board announced an investigation into the Brennan and Associates insurance scheme. 3 law firms contacted me offering to join the civil lawsuit pro bono. The publicity alone was worth millions in advertising. Patricia tried calling an emergency meeting to address media misinformation, but only 4 homeowners showed up. Everyone else was organizing, forming coalitions, planning how to remove her. That evening, segment 2 aired, focusing on the systematic retaliation against families. 15 families sharing violation stories. The pattern undeniable. Emma watched herself on screen again, then looked up at me. "Does this mean other kids won't get hurt, Daddy?" I pulled her close. "Yes, sweetheart. That's exactly what it means." The woman in the power suit had built her kingdom on fear and silence. But fear evaporates when people realize they're not alone. And silence breaks when the truth becomes too loud to ignore. Patricia Brennan's world was collapsing. And we were just getting started. The emergency homeowner meeting was called for Saturday at 7 p.m. Not by Patricia, by the residents themselves. 198 of 215 homeowners packed into the community center, with another 30 standing outside because there wasn't room. I arrived with Emma, and the crowd parted. People I'd never spoken to reached out to touch my shoulder, whisper apologies, tell me they should have spoken up sooner. The fear that had paralyzed this community for 2 years was gone, replaced by collective fury. Patricia sat at the front table, her power suit immaculate, clipboard in front of her like a shield, but her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the gavel. Kyle wasn't there, smart, given the mood in the room. She tried to call the meeting to order, but Marcus Chen stood before she could speak. "I'm resigning as vice president effective immediately," he said, his voice carrying across the packed room. "But before I do, I need to say something." He pulled out a folder, copies of his documentation, distributed to every attendee. "I've been complicit in enabling dangerous behavior and retaliating against families who tried to protect their children. For 2 years, I documented every incident, every cover-up, every threat, and I stayed silent because I was afraid." The room was completely still. I have recordings of board meetings where Patricia Brennan explicitly discussed using HOA authority to silence families reporting her son's behavior. I have evidence of systematic retaliation. I have proof she funneled insurance business to her sister while threatening homeowners with violations if they didn't comply. Marcus's voice strengthened. I watched a pattern of escalation from property damage to animal cruelty to assault, and I did nothing. Emma Mason lost her eye because I chose my own comfort over children's safety. He looked directly at Patricia. But I'm done being complicit. I'm done protecting someone who weaponizes authority to shield a dangerous child. I move for immediate removal of Patricia Brennan as HOA president. Seconded! 3 voices shouted simultaneously. Patricia stood, her face flushed. This is a coordinated attack by a disgruntled homeowner and media sensationalism. Sit down. Tom Chen's voice cut through her deflection. We've seen the videos, we've read the medical records, we know about the insurance fraud. The state is investigating you. Your employer fired you. Our insurance carrier is threatening to drop us if you're not removed. My son made a mistake. Your son has made dozens of mistakes. Sarah Martinez stood, holding photos of her injured cat. And you've covered up every single one while punishing families who tried to protect their children. Jessica Park stood next, her phone held high, playing the playground video for everyone to see. Kyle's laughter echoed through the community center as children screamed and scattered on screen. That was 3 days ago, Jessica said, after Emma was already blind, after all the media coverage, and he was still targeting children, still laughing. The room erupted, parents shouting, demanding answers, sharing stories that had been buried under fear and violations. I stood, and the room quieted. I didn't yell, didn't attack. I simply pulled out Emma's medical file and held it up. This is what your president's protection of her son cost my daughter. Permanent vision loss, lifelong disability, dreams of playing soccer, of being a pilot, of a normal childhood. All gone because Kyle Brennan pointed a laser at her face, and his mother made sure he'd never face consequences. I looked around the room at parents holding their own children. This isn't about my family anymore. It's about whether this community protects children or protects their abusers, whether we're a place where kids are safe or where fear of violations keeps us silent while they're harmed. All in favor of removing Patricia Brennan as HOA president? Hands shot up like a wave. 187 in favor, 14 against, most of them not even present, proxies submitted before the meeting. The board chair stood, grabbed her clipboard, and walked toward the exit. You'll all regret this. My lawyers will be very busy defending you in civil court, criminal investigations, and ethics hearings, I said calmly. She slammed the door behind her, but nobody cared. The nightmare was over. 6 months later, Meadowbrook Estates looked different, felt different. The fear that had hung over the community like smoke had lifted, replaced by something none of us had experienced in years: actual community. The civil lawsuit settled before trial. Patricia's insurance carrier paid policy limits, $2 million, and her personal assets covered another $300,000. Emma's medical care, future accommodations, education funds, all secured. But the money wasn't the victory. It never had been. The real victory was watching the former board chair's world completely dismantle. Meridian Corporate Solutions didn't just fire her. They issued a public statement distancing themselves from her conduct, emphasizing their zero tolerance for ethical violations. Her professional reputation, built over 2 decades, destroyed overnight. The State Insurance Regulatory Board's investigation resulted in fines and license suspension for Brennan and Associates. Patricia's sister faced her own legal consequences, and the agency eventually closed. The kickback scheme that had generated over $200,000 cost them everything. Kyle's case went through juvenile court. The judge's ruling was scathing. When parents weaponize authority to shield children from consequences of dangerous behavior, they don't protect their children. They create future criminals. This court finds a pattern of escalating antisocial conduct enabled by parental intervention that prevented necessary psychological intervention and accountability. Kyle received intensive supervised probation, mandatory behavioral therapy, and a permanent prohibition from possessing lasers, BB guns, or similar devices. His juvenile record would follow him into adulthood. Colleges would see it. Employers would know. But the judge's final statement was directed at Patricia. Ms. Brennan, your abuse of authority as HOA president to cover up your son's assaults represents a fundamental betrayal of community trust. While this court cannot sentence you criminally, know that your actions have resulted in permanent harm to a child and systemic damage to families who trusted your leadership. That is a life sentence of its own making. Patricia declared bankruptcy within 3 months. Her home, the same house where Kyle had stood in the window with that laser, went into foreclosure. She moved out of state, but the media coverage followed. HOA president, who shielded son from assault charges, became her permanent identity online. The media attention sparked legislative action. The state passed the HOA Accountability and Child Safety Act, requiring transparent reporting of any incidents involving minors, prohibiting retaliation against families reporting safety concerns, and mandating that board members with conflicts of interest recuse themselves from related decisions. 23 HOAs across the state voluntarily adopted similar policies before the law even took effect. Marcus became interim president and rebuilt the board with actual accountability. 15 families who'd received retaliatory violations had them dismissed and fines refunded. The special assessment was returned to every homeowner. Emma became an advocate. Her story appeared in HOA management training materials nationwide, a cautionary tale about what happens when authority becomes weapon instead of service. She spoke at a state legislative hearing, her eye patch visible on C-SPAN, her voice clear. HOAs are supposed to protect communities, not protect people who hurt kids. Today, I stood in our backyard watching Emma work in the garden we'd planted together around the swing set. She still struggled with depth perception, still mourned what she'd lost, but she'd learned to navigate her new reality with remarkable courage. "Dad, can we plant roses here?" She pointed to a spot near the swing's base. "Wherever you want, sweetheart." She smiled, and I saw the fighter she'd become, not despite what happened, but because she'd watched justice prevail through truth, community action, and refusing to stay silent. Patricia's life sentence wasn't prison. It was professional destruction, financial ruin, social exile, and the permanent knowledge that her enabling of her son's cruelty had been exposed to the world. Sometimes justice doesn't come through courtrooms. Sometimes it comes through truth told loudly enough that silence becomes impossible. If you've ever felt powerless against someone abusing authority, share this story. Hit subscribe for more stories of parents who fought back and won. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and if you've faced an HOA nightmare, let's hear it. Because when communities stand together, no clipboard is powerful enough to silence the truth.